What here's a really good question someone left in the comments not so long ago. What are some ways you can communicate to a woman that you're good in bed before you have any kind of intimacy with her?
Mm.
A good question.
Yeah, go for it.
Um, yeah, it's first thing when you approach is you want to look confident. So confident is going to be relaxed under tension. The more tension you create, the better. So you can create more tension by being a little bit closer to her, by maintaining more eye contact, by speaking loudly, by letting other people actually see. So if you're in a cafe, don't be like, "Hey, sorry, just that comes." Like, speak loud, let everyone know that you're opening this goal. That in itself is gonna show that girls aren't dumb. They can tell. Like, girls will say like, "A guy makes out with me. I know if he's gonna be good in bed." I've had girls say, "The way you approached me, I know you're going to be good in bed." And it usually just comes from that confidence and that more dominance that you carry within yourself. Then obviously we can get into more like explicit things. So if you can talk about sexual topics with authority, then it's going to be very clear that you're good in bed. So I have a lot of my students do cold reads, for example. So starting to show they sexually understand the girl. Even on Tinder, this works really well, right? If the girl looks like very innocent, a lot of our students will say lines like, "Listen, I can tell most guys, especially on here, probably think you're like very innocent and inexperienced. But I can tell you have more of a like devilish side to you. I can tell you have more of a fun side to you." And a lot of these girls, it's true, right? A lot of girls are sexual. They're on Tinder, right? A lot of girls do have sexual fantasies, and if they look innocent, most guys just treat them that way. Other girls, right? They could be like a boss bitch, and you could say, "I could tell you have a very strong feminine side to you," right? Again, like you could go into it. Like a lot of guys think you're fucking dominant, masculine, manly. I wouldn't use those words, but like you can start to communicate this. I can tell you're soft and feminine and actually want a dominant man to be with you.
Hmm.
So if the girls start hearing that, they're like, "Damn, this guy gets me," right? I walk around this world where every guy has no idea that exists within me. I don't even tell my friends about this. This motherfucker knows I'm submissive. How the fuck does he know, right? So that to begin with shows a lot of authority. And then, as I said, you can start to run like sexual fantasy routines, as I call them. So as you develop more sexual tension, the conversation starts going. You can then start to say like, "Look, I'm curious. I think you're into this. What have you experienced?" You could even just like, "What's the craziest thing you've ever done?" You could talk about your sexual experiences. All of this will lead to a point where I want the girl to know she's about to have the best experience of her life. That's what I want it all to lead to. And then yeah, last point, I guess, is like physicality. I try not to teach my students to be too physical. I think people overuse this a little bit too much and
Yeah.
it can start to feel a little bit needy. Like, if you're the guy that's like constantly trying to make out with the girl and you're making out for a really long time, like, I would rather just make out really well for a short period of time, have her know, "Wow, that was great," and then have her think, like, "Damn, I want more of this," and keep that tension there, have her wanting more. Um, yeah, what do you reckon, Justin?
Yeah, well, I think I'm glad you mentioned that one part about the physicality and stuff like that. Like, I'm not a big fan of Kino. I can't stand it. Um,
Thank God. You're like the one guy I've ever met to disagree with me on that.
no, it because well, I mean, think about it, right? Like, let's like, would James Bond ever resort to Kino? Like, his Kino is actually purposely not touching a woman, right? He doesn't have to. You know what I'm saying? Like, the tension of not touching is stronger than the tension created from touching. So I think that that sort of like pushing on physicality is just, I don't know. It's pretty low vibration. It's low level thinking. Um, but I think that everything that you said was good. Like, just slow down, right? Someone who's experienced in anything is not in a rush. I mean, unless you're like a MotoGP racer, that's about it. But anyone who's experienced in any aspect, any skill, any hobby, whatever, it's not going to be rushed because he's that, and that shows the confidence. Like, this is not new to me. It's not upsetting me. It's not pushing me off my square. I've done this 10,000 times, right? So you got to think of like, well, in anything, I mean, what do they say? Like 10,000 hours, right? That you have mastery of something. How would that person behave? And that would give you an indication of like how you should probably behave. All right. Now, as far as communication, I have my students learn about erotic storytelling. They read erotica, they write erotica, and that helps build the library. Now, if you have not had this, experiences, you can create the experiences. Okay, and women, they respond really fucking well to auditory imagery, where you can basically start painting pictures in her mind. Like the erotica literature genre, the books is a multi-million dollar industry. I think by 2027 or something that I read, it's going to be a multi-billion dollar industry. They love this stuff. Okay. It's their porn. And so, if you can get good at being descriptive and describing things, you don't have to be so callous and say, this is what I'm going to do to you later. Although, if that comes up, like if that's the way the conversation has gone, sure, like, just go down that road. But if you're getting into talk about sexual things, and the topic has become sexual, you can recount something, right? You can tell a story, and but be descriptive, and it doesn't even have to be a true story. It could be just one of the stories that say you wrote, but you could say, this one time or whatever, and just use that description, and this will make her feel like she will be cast into that reality that you've just painted, and make her feel the scenario that you've painted. Now, of course, it's better to not do that and just actually have those experiences. But hey, if guy doesn't have any experience, utilize the tools. You know what I mean? Until you have those experiences, and then you no longer have to lie to her. But yeah, I think a good example of this is if you go on YouTube and look up Vicky Cristina Barcelona cafe scene or bar scene, and there's the guy, I forget the name of the actor. Um, I think it was the dude from No Country for Old Men. But anyways, he walks up to the table, and there's the two girls sitting there, and Scarlett Johansson's one of them, and his whole demeanor, his entire demeanor, how he's presenting himself, he was so relaxed. I think he had his hands in his pockets the entire time, and it was almost like
Josh
he
Brolin or
Josh
Javier
Brolin.
Bardem?
Yeah, Javier. Yes. Yep, it was Javier. And it was almost like he just didn't even give a shit, And he was just like, hey, listen, he looked at the one girl, says, what color are your eyes? That was like the first thing he said. He didn't introduce himself, none of this stuff. It's just like, hey, what color are your eyes? Or are you American? I think maybe that was his first line. I don't remember. But and then he just described what he wanted to do. Listen, I want to go to this island, that's nearby. We're gonna fly there. There's a beautiful sculpture there. We'll drink, we'll have sex, we'll enjoy food. It'll be fantastic, right? But the whole idea is to look at his demeanor, the actor's demeanor. It was just super relaxed, and almost like he didn't give a shit what their response was. And I think having that attitude is incredibly important, because I guess really that comes down to the outcome independence. Like, he really didn't care whether they said yes or no. He was just offering it. And I think that is supremely beneficial for guys who are trying to get a read on girls, as far as like their level of interest, and, their arousal and that sort of thing.
I wonder what Sean Connery would say about this. Maybe he'll say, "Ah, yes, Kino escalation is the only Kino escalation I do is when I slap her with my misogyny." Uh,
Yes. Oh, I loved that interview. Sean Connery is the best.
I was like, "Damn, that's crazy."